Welcome back to an episode of Collegiate Sports. I'm with my co-host Josh Harper. How's it going, my man?
What up? What's going on, everybody? What's up, Marco? How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Can't complain, man. Great weekend of women college basketball. How was your weekend go?
Oh, it was great, man. Had a family event. Went back to the Bay Area. Um, Came back, watched some women's basketball on Sunday. I believe it was Sunday. Last night. Crazy game. Good game. Women's sports, man. It's looking promising. So I had a good
What, what,
time.
what was your thoughts on Caitlin Clark? Because I know a lot of people were like initially were like, oh, she's not as great. Caitlin
Mhm,
Clark isn't this. Caitlin Clark isn't that. And some people were saying like she's great. Some people were
mhm.
saying she's not. What are your thoughts on Caitlin Clark?
She's hard, man. You can't really say anything bad about her. She's a hooper. Like if you look at it, I'm not gonna act like I watched every single game she played, but this tournament I did. And if you really look at it, she can't be guarded one on one. She can't. She's shooting from half court like Steph and Dame Lillard. She's having all these assists. You know, she's finding her open woman. You know, like she does it all right, and she can handle the ball. Um, I think Iowa's coach should have just spreaded it out more and just let her go to work, man. Because you know that step back she got is she's a hooper, she's a baller. I can't say she's the greatest, greatest of all time, or predict what she's gonna do at the next level. But what she did for college, the game, and what she did on the court, you know,
I
you
believe
can't say nothing bad about that.
I believe that championship, like the views and like the ratings and everything, set like a record for most views for a championship game in like the last 5 years, not just for women, men
Mm,
as well. So for those who are
that's
like,
crazy.
oh, it's just women, like man, I don't care what anyone says.
Mm,
The women put on a better show this tournament than the men's did. I don't
one
care what
hundred percent.
anyone says. Like we could go down the list to Angel Reese,
Mm-hmm.
Cameron Brink, to at Stanford. We could go down like a name on a lot of these big schools for the women
Mm-hmm.
because they're hoopers. And I felt like NCAA did a phenomenal job on promoting the women
Mm-hmm.
in the sport. But shout out to Caitlin Clark. Shout out to South Carolina. Hell of a team. Shout out to Don Staley. Great coach, even better person. Love how she gave Caitlin Clark a shout out. Um, One thing I thought was crazy is I know you're into music a little bit, right?
Yeah, yeah.
What are your thoughts on? And I know this is super off topic. This is but starts the
Mm-hmm.
show. I told Jay Harp we're gonna have some random topics before we
Mm-hmm.
get into the talk.
Yeah.
What's your talk on the K Dot and J Cole beef going on, and then the
Oh,
J Cole apologizing and whatnot? I'm a big
yeah,
J Cole fan. Like I think
yeah.
J Cole's dope. I like Kendrick Lamar too, but
Mhm.
I would say I'm a bigger J Cole fan than Kendrick. But I just wanted to hear your thoughts on that before we go.
So here's an unbiased opinion. I'm not really like I like both artists, but I wouldn't call myself a fan of both artists. I probably listen to J. Cole more than Kendrick. I like his music a little better. But Kendrick broke the internet, right? He broke the internet with that verse. He damn near like he made their album go bigger than what it should. I didn't really like the album. Future is one of my favorite artists. I really didn't like the album. So Kendrick single-handedly did that on his own with one verse, right? He put that album up here. J. Cole, he comes back. It wasn't really a diss that I felt like was a diss. It was kind of like I thought it was just a warning shot. Like, all right, Kendrick, be cool. You know, I got something in the chamber for you. But instead, at his show, he goes out and apologizes. I disliked that. I didn't like it at all. If you didn't want to battle, reach out to Cole or reach out to Kendrick on the phone. Let him know, like, hey, I'm not battling you. You can send another shot back, but I'm not battling. For him to go out publicly and just throw in the towel like that, I didn't like it. And this is what all rap fans was waiting for: a J. Cole versus Kendrick beat. Those are like I would say two of the top lyricists in the game right now. Not artists, but two of the top lyricists in the game. And for Cole to just throw the talent like that and not even put up a fight for his first diss track, I was disappointed.
I was kind of shocked he came back, but Like I listened to like that little apology or whatever, taking back the diss or whatever. And what I did realize was like he wasn't even gonna respond in general. Like
Mm-hmm.
he was like, what made me respond was my boys up there, and he points to the boots up there, and he's like, my
Yeah.
boys up there in social media made me respond. And I was like, bro, why? Like one, I felt like J. Cole, I thought the part where J. Cole like actually had a diss or where he was like name dropped most of his albums saying how like they
Mm-hmm.
weren't good.
Right.
He only
Right.
raps every 5 years. I thought that was like, okay, like yeah, you're right. But then he kept saying, but you're my boy. I
Yeah.
love you. Hold up. Well, I'm just like, all right, you shouldn't even fire back. Like I like
Mm-hmm.
both of them.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I do listen to J. Cole more. K Dot, he's probably gonna drop something. That's probably why he did that, because now
Yeah.
his name is surfacing everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
J. Cole obviously just dropped that album, which is pretty cool. I like the first song on it.
Mm-hmm.
That song goes hard. I just feel like it's weird. Like you don't turn something. It's like me talking smack to someone and then like going, "Wait, hold up, my bad. I didn't mean to say." Like, no, you said what you
Yeah,
said,
you
which is
said what
best.
you said, man.
Like, but
And and for him to just like, man, this is what the rap fans been. This is it's we're not expecting them to when they see each other at the club to go fight. We're not expecting that. We're just two lyricists going head to head, two of the top lyricists in the game today going head to head, you know, diss track for diss track. Maybe even shit, hop on a song together. Let's see that. Let's see who got the most bars. Who you know who comes out on top of that. Like, but for him to go that route,
and I think that's why J. Cole sent that apology out, though. I think he wants to keep his doors open to do some work with Kendrick. Like, I think he doesn't want to close that door because if he keeps that diss out there and he keeps like it like an actual true diss and everything, I think it closes the door on them ever working together ever again. Or I mean, potentially. Just kind of weird how Kendrick could have dropped his own music
mm-hmm.
and dissed him, but did it on Metro's album. Like I thought that was just kind of weird. Like
Yeah,
that's weird. But there's
yeah,
more
it is.
more to it than we know, obviously, because
Mhm.
Metro even said pick a side and stay there to J. Cole. So
Mhm.
but in other news, I had a question that was sent to me and they wanted me to specifically talk about it with you, not
Okay.
my other shows. They wanted it to be with on this show, and they wanted us to talk about Kyle Shanahan, and they wanted it so the way the person presented this question and said, "Look, Jay Harp has played high level football in college. He played in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
At what point do you no longer trust your head coach? Like where you feel like, damn, he isn't the guy that we're gonna win with. They need to hire someone else, XYZ." So he was like, is Kyle Shanahan's seat getting hot? Is it warm? And I thought that was a very interesting question because the Niners have extended him. So I don't think it's hot, but I think this is a great question. When does it become warm or when does it become hot, in your opinion?
Man, so it becomes it. It could be warm right now. What I mean, warm doesn't mean nothing. It when it gets hot is when you start, you know, hearing rumblings coming out the locker room, stuff getting leaked. You know, players not being happy. That's when you lose the locker room, and it's like, okay, he's on the hot seat. And then when that happens, and then you start losing, you know, you're not winning all the time. That's when it's like, okay, he's on the hot seat. You know, let's, you know, he got to pick it up. You know, let's start looking in different directions. You know what's going to happen, but he's not there yet. You know, we haven't really heard anything, you know, negative coming from the locker room or, you know, like sneak disses. You know, there's ways players could, you know, put something
But
out there. You know what I'm saying?
but what would we consider the Brandon Ayuk family dissing Kyle in a way by saying, "Why didn't you go to who got you here the
Uh-huh.
entire time? 3 targets isn't enough." He's the OC, like he's the
Mm-hmm.
head coach, but he's also the OC.
Mm-hmm.
So is that sort of like a diss
That
at BA taking a shot at him?
Yeah, I would say so. Things like that, right? But the only reason why I'm going to give that one a pass is because Ayuk is, you know, in his coming up on a contract year. He wants to get paid, rightfully so. He does. He should get paid. So those are, I believe, those are like negotiating tactics, like to scare, to scare the Niners. We went through it with Debo. I think those are just tactics. I don't think anything of that is serious yet. As we get closer to the season, if he gets paid this year or if they play him on his fifth year, then things will start to, that could be a cancerous to the locker room, right? And things will start to leak. Kyle will start losing trust in the players, or Kyle will start losing trust from the players. But I don't think we're there yet. I don't think we're close. I think Kyle. So look, Kyle is a players coach. He goes on trips with his players.
But does he invite everyone?
He doesn't invite everyone. I don't even know if everyone. I don't think everyone can go. But it's when you're with the leaders though, when you're with the leaders and you're on a trip, that's personal. That's a personal relationship. And those are the heads of the locker room. So if things start to come out, like they rumblings start hearing in the locker room, you're gonna tell Kyle, like, hey, Kyle, here's what you got to do. You got to earn the locker room trust back. The younger dudes they're saying this and that, and that's the start of a hot locker room. You don't want that. So I don't think we're there yet.
At what point does it become there? Because obviously the Niners have gotten to the Super Bowl. They have a successful team. Like they're a winning franchise. But at what point do you think the organization or the team could be like, you know what? Kyle isn't the guy to win a Super Bowl. Like we're not going to win a Super Bowl with him. Obviously, we've had great teams. We've had great situations. At what point does that start happening? Because like, what point do we hold him accountable? We're like, hey, you know what? He is the reason why we're not winning these rings. He has failed twice on the big stage where you could point to his offense being a big factor on actually losing these games.
Yeah.
Defense has held one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play the game to 19 points in regulation. The last Super Bowl, the last one wasn't that many as well. So at what point do you point at the offensive coordinator, head coach, and say his offense isn't good enough?
So I mean, I think we're at that point. I mean, he hasn't like the ultimate goal is winning a Super Bowl, right? You have to win one before you can go long periods of times without winning another one, and you're staying as the head coach like Tomlin, right? I mean, Tomlin won multiple Super Bowls, right? How many Super Bowls have Tomlin won?
I think he has one.
Okay, so he's won one Super Bowl. So, but he's still winning. He's not winning Super Bowls, but they know with Tomlin you can win a Super Bowl. So I think Kyle has to win a Super Bowl soon, and I think he will eventually. But for him to stay on the Niners and avoid criticism, you have to win that Super Bowl, and then you can take periods of time where you're in the playoffs every year, but you're not quite making the Super Bowl or you're not winning the Super Bowl. If he can get that one under his belt, his leash will, extend that much longer. No Diddy. So that's what you got to do.
Yeah, but but like, what's the difference between Kyle's success and Jim Harbaugh? At what point does the ownership? Because like obviously it doesn't matter what the hell the players say, right? Like players could get upset with the Niners organization because Kyle isn't winning things. Obviously, Kyle's winning games, taking them deep into the playoffs year in, year out. But at what point does the ownership say, you know what? This isn't good enough for us. They did it to Jim Harbaugh. They chose the general manager. Now, I believe this head coach does have a lot more power, and that's why Kyle came to this organization, because of the power. At what point does the ownership say, you know what? Maybe we do have Andy Reid 2.0, and we're not going to be able to win with him until another 20 years. What does that start happening? And if it does happen, does it like cause drama between players where players choose sides, where players start siding with Kyle over the franchise since they're buddy like you said, like they go to Cancun together, Cabo together? How does this thing play out?
So you got to understand. So the top players on this team, the leaders of this team, they're getting older in age, right? So once they tail off, how does Kyle handle that? Do they win? Do they have like a two losing seasons? If they have 2 losing seasons, ownership has the right to question, like, okay, what's the next? What is our next plan? You know, Kyle, he's a good coach. He did good with really good talent. But you know, can we get better? That's when ownership has a, you know, that's when ownership will step in and say, you know, can we do better? Is there another coach out there that we want to, you know, take over the reins of this franchise? I would say this, Kyle does have a lot of power right now. He has a lot, and that's tough for ownership to just say, for somebody who has power of the organization like that, like Kyle does, for them to just say, like, okay, you know, let's get him out of here, you know, because he means so much to the organization. He's just not the head coach. He has a lot of say in what goes on in the organization. So,
And I think for me, like where I'm kind of stuck in the situation where I think Kyle's a great coach. I don't think you could replace Kyle Shanahan as a head coach. He's under contract, I believe, until 2025 at least,
mhm,
um, because he signed that extension. Could be even longer actually, because that extension came like a couple of years ago. So I think he's even longer now.
mhm,
But when we look at the Niners and everything, Kyle Shanahan is a great offensive mind, but also his offenses have struggled on the big stage. His offenses, and we can't blame the quarterback anymore. He traded up to go get a quarterback. He didn't hit on that quarterback. He
mhm,
failed. He didn't even try to develop him. He moved on to the next quarterback right away. Brock Purdy calls him the real deal. Says that he could win with him. Does all the XYZ. Doesn't win with him when he had the advantage in terms of the Niners on paper had the better team.
yeah,
This is the only time Mahomes isn't going to have a good receiving core. Now they're going to get better. Other teams are getting better. The Lions are going to get better. So for me, I'm looking at it, I'm like, well, the Niners ownership should have waited on that extension. I thought that extension was premature
mhm,
because he hadn't won a Super Bowl. He hadn't won that big game. Now he's winning big games in terms of playoff games. But I'm talking about the Super Bowl game is the big dance. And for me, I think at some point we got to start talking about Kyle in terms of, hey, you are more of the issue than what's the word I'm really looking for. He's more the issue than anything. Like then
mhm.
in that Super Bowl game, offense is struggling, defenses are putting up stops, getting turnovers. So at some point we got to start holding him accountable. And I think his seat is warm, like you said, to start.
Mhm.
Is there anything he could do that could potentially make it scorching hot this season?
If they take a step back, one, if I don't foresee them not making the playoffs. Let's just get that out of the way. But if they have a first round knockout and the offense just doesn't, like, has a, then that's when the seat becomes hot. You know, I'm not talking injuries, no quarterback, anything like that. If you have your team going into the playoffs and it's like a first round loss, the seat has to be hot, right? Because we don't question if he's a good offensive coordinator. At this point, we're questioning if he's a good head coach, right? So that's one way that, you know, his seat can be scorching hot. But again, I don't foresee them not making the playoffs. If they don't make the playoffs, then, you know, then we have a different conversation.
Now, Kyle's offense has been an issue. I would say in at times in the Super Bowl, it's been an issue at times during the regular season. Also the Niners offense is extremely explosive, one of the better offenses in the NFL. But what do they got to do to expand their offense in order to win the big game? What do they have to do offensively? Do they got to go away from the 21 personnel, the 22 personnel with that two running back set? How do
Mhm.
you see the Niners evolving as an offense under Kyle Shanahan? Which, in my opinion, I think Kyle Shanahan is too old minded in the sense of he wants to run his dad and Gary Kubiak's offense, where
Mhm.
they won a lot of games and Super Bowls with in the 90s. But we're in 2024 where the NFL is a pass happy league where you could run the ball 25, 30 times and win a game versus Kyle was in the mindset of I have to run the ball 40 times in order to win a game. What are
Right.
your thoughts on the offense of expanding it and how do you evolve this offense?
Man, so honestly, I think that's one of the reasons why the Niners have been good over these past few years, right? You run the ball, run the ball, run the ball, and then you get it into these playmakers' hands, and they're explosive. And the defense has been good. They've been good. So you control the clock, let your defense create these turnovers and big sacks, and you run it down the team's throat or swing pass or like a screen to Debo, let him do his thing, and Kittle. That's how they've been so good for all these years. But it's not what's getting them over the hump. So there's something that has to change, whether that's like you said, going into 11 personnel, getting away from 21 personnel, shoring up that offensive line where you don't have to chip every time. Maybe you trust your offensive line to pick up the blitz if it's a 5-man rush, or you trust McCaffrey to pick up the extra man, so your receivers out there one-on-one and get it in their hands because they're so explosive. So I would say, one, shoring up that offensive line. They got to do it. They got to fit. I'm not even saying their offensive line is just terrible. I'm saying they have to find a unit where they can trust them to protect for a certain amount of time. That's one. And then two, I don't really like. I'm not a fan of 21 personnel. I think the NFL is more so 11 personnel. I think I know McCaffrey will still run all over the place in 11 personnel. So that's just me. I would say more 11 personnel, getting your playmakers on the field. Less time with a player like what's the second tight end's name? Like less time with that person on the field. Get a playmaker on the field because nobody's even worried about that second tight end person. So 11 personnel, interchange Juice in there, because he can still catch the ball. And he's still a really good blocker. So I would say those personnel, and keep those Ross Dwelly types, off the field, or Charlie Warner or whatever his name was.
For me, I think it's the Niners offense. It's great. Don't get me wrong. Like Kyle Shanahan's a great offensive coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
He does a phenomenal job of getting his players into the right position. And I think as a player, that's the main thing you ask for your coach. Put me in a position where I could be successful. Now, he does a phenomenal job at that. But he also, I feel like he becomes, and I'm curious what you have to think about this, is he becomes a little one-minded, or one player centric too much. For example, throughout a game, we could see him when he's going to give Christian McCaffrey 30 plus touches, or when in the passing game where he has a vision where Debo Samuel's going to win over the middle over and over and over and over again, but then he doesn't adjust for when Steve Spagnuolo adjusts, or when Steve Spagnuolo is blitzing, or certain things, or he's disguising. And I think that's an issue with Kyle Shanahan in a way, in terms of he has all these playmakers. He has an elite offense in terms of receivers, tight ends. But you could even argue the quarterback is in that range of high caliber player. So do you think Kyle Shanahan becomes too one player like centered, where that could be an issue with Kyle Shanahan? Like he feels like, you know what, I game planned so well throughout the week, all night, every day, where I'm gonna only go to George Kittle this game, or I'm only gonna go to Christian McCaffrey this game, instead of, for example, I used the comparison to on Ashley Rihanna's show like 20 minutes ago. So she asked me about the situation. I was like, honestly, I feel like the Niners could be like the Kevin Durant Warriors, where you can't guard them, where in a situation where you have to account for everyone, but at times Kyle Shanahan likes to be throwing a James Harden on the Warriors offense, where he goes so ISO ball and he's so, all right, I'm going to Brandon Ayuk this game all game, or I'm going to just a George Kittle. And I feel like that's why James Harden hasn't won a championship, or why the Warriors are so dominant, because you can't defend a team like that when you're constantly spreading around. And I feel like Kyle is his own enemy at times. And I'm just curious on what you have to think about Kyle being one player dimensional.
Yeah, and I mean we've talked about this during the year. I want to say where like Kittle's not touching the ball enough, or they gotta do a better job of getting Debo the ball. So yes, I agree, because there should never be a time where one of those people are struggling to get targets, or Ayuk, like his people just said, Like why does he not have this many targets, or he only has 3 targets this game? Like there should, like with this offense and this personnel, there shouldn't be a time they should be throwing it across the yard. At times they're focused on giving McCaffrey the ball 40 times a game, which I get because he's arguably probably the best offensive player in the NFL. But let's save him. Let's save him. Let's keep him fresh. Let's feed all the playmakers. You have so many playmakers on the field, like you said. They could be like the Warriors if you just spread them out and have certain plays drawn up for each player, or there shouldn't, like you said, there shouldn't be a time where he's just focused on one player, and it happened a lot this year with especially with McCaffrey. Even when
What
they were
happened in the Super Bowl?
and in the Super Bowl, right? Yeah, so yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons. That's one of the things Kyle has to adjust. I don't know if he's a good in-game adjuster. He has to learn how to adjust. And okay, if this isn't working, if we're not finna force feed this player, we have all these other players on the field. We're gonna isolate one of them so they can get a good matchup, and we're gonna pick on that matchup. So he can be the Warriors, but he's not, and I think that's him. He's in his own way, and he has to figure that out.
Just because I know you said in terms of game adjustments, in-game
Mhm.
adjustments,
Mhm.
I had saw a Peyton Manning where he said he thinks one of the biggest myths is teams adjusting at halftime. He said he
Mhm.
never once in his career adjusted at halftime. Is that just Peyton Manning, or do teams really not adjust at halftime?
Man, so I mean, what is he considered adjusting? So I know at the college level, at the pro level, when you go into the locker room, hey guys, they're running this, they keep running this. Here's how we're gonna beat this now. Like we're gonna start doing this. Get ready for this play. We're coming out in this personnel. This is how we're gonna beat them. Get ready for it. That's an adjustment. So I don't know. I'm not going to question one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. Well, actually, I am. I think they do make adjustments at halftime because that's an adjustment. What do you go in at halftime and talk about?
He said this is the exact quote as I found. He said, "I don't I don't know if I ever made a halftime adjustment in my entire 18-year career. I think the biggest myth in football is the halftime adjustments. You go in, you use the bathroom, you eat a couple of oranges, then the head coach says, "All right, let's go."
No, no, sir, no, sir. Even at the college level, we'll come in. Here's how they're guarding this formation. They guarded this formation every single time. Get ready for this play. That's an
So
adjustment.
that's what I thought too. Like, because I
Yeah.
even our in the high school and everything, our coaches would have like the film already on their
Mhm.
tablet. They're
Mhm.
showing us on the screen. They're like, "All right, hey, this XYZ, this was happening.
Yeah.
We're gonna adjust by going to cover three. We're gonna just by
Yeah.
going to cover it. We're gonna cloud things and go palms instead. There's like certain things. It's like, wait, what are we? We're truly like that. I was kind of confused when Peyton Manning
Yeah.
said that. So the fact that you said you don't think Kyle was a good in game
Mhm. Mhm.
adjuster, does Kyle Shanahan adjust mid game? Like, is he Peyton? Is he like Peyton Manning? You know what? Everyone go have a seat, eat an orange, eat a banana, so you don't cramp. All right, we're going back out there.
Man, I haven't been in his locker room, but I can't imagine he goes in there and is just doing that. It has to be something. I mean, and I know they're on the sideline having adjustments as well after every series. Like that's one of the biggest adjustments. Here's how they're covering this formation. When we line up in this is what they come out in. Get ready for this play. You know, when they line up in this position, when we line up in this formation, they're clouding it every single time. Be ready for this play in this formation. Like that's what those talks are. After each possession at halftime, you know, you don't just go in and just say, hey, we're doing pretty, or they're doing pretty good. We just got to keep going. All right, let's break. Let's get back out there.
And
That's not what goes on.
what's crazy is players adjust. Like, if we're being 100% honest, you technically adjust every play. Like
Yeah,
your three A's are assignment, or alignment, assignment, and adjustment. Like you're
yeah.
adjusting based off of coverage. So technically, you're adjusting every play. So I would assume what Peyton Manning's more so like when I saw this, like, okay, maybe Peyton Manning was like, you know what? I'm such a good film watcher
Mhm.
that I knew what they were already going to be in. I
Yeah,
knew what they were going to do, so I don't have to adjust because I'm calling plays at the line of scrimmage.
right.
So I don't have to adjust. I don't have to hear my offensive coordinator say, "Hey, you know what? They're running this. to us, we're gonna go to this play at this time, and we're gonna hit a home run, a touchdown.
Right.
I feel like Peyton Manning's more so, hey, OC, you know what? Hold that clipboard, shut up over there. I'm gonna call the plays. I'm gonna call the plays at the line of scrimmage. Kind of like
Right.
that's how I see Peyton Manning, and that's how I remember watching him play.
Mhm.
So that's what I'm assuming, and I hope that's what Peyton Manning is talking about
Yeah.
because it blew my mind.
But
Now,
even then, like the offensive coordinator will come to him like, "Hey, what are you seeing right here? How did so what if we did this? Would you like that?" They'll ask him, right? Like I just don't think they just go in and just shut up. Everybody shuts up. All right, let Peyton do his thing. Now, I don't think that's what's going on. But if it is, hey, that's crazy.
that's where I was kind of shocked. I was like, there's no way there's no adjustments at halftime. Now, I do see the comment from 49ers Throwback. Are the 49ers looking for another George Kittle? I don't know. So I think this is a comment, and I hope I'm right in terms of, are you talking about David Lombardi comparing Eric Saubert, who the 49ers just signed, tight end, to George Kittle? So he talked about, and this is the weird, I don't know how you could compare Eric Saubert to George Kittle in this situation, but this is what this is what I'm assuming 49ers Throwback is talking about. David Lombardi tweeted, new 49ers tight end Eric Saubert had good speed, 4.69, and explosiveness metric coming out of Drake in 2017. Then he throws in, like Kittle, he was a 5th round draft pick that year. Saubert hasn't caught many passes, but his career high is 15 in 2022, were more than Charlie Warner has had in 4 years. So he threw in George Kittle, so I'm assuming he's like, hey, you know what? Just because he hasn't caught many passes, Kyle Shanhan has taken in an athletic tight end and turned him into George Kittle. I don't know. I hope that's what you're talking about, Throwback, but I think they're just trying to get another tight end on their roster. Now, this came up as we're talking about we know Kyle Shanahan is a good offensive coordinator. The question is he a good head coach? Is it time for Kyle Shanahan, the offensive coordinator, to give the keys to someone he trusts as an offensive coordinator? Kyle Shanahan sit back as the head coach, who could still call the plays. He doesn't have to necessarily have his fingers all tied up to everything and be in every meeting like the big brother. Can Kyle Shanahan hire head coach, offensive coordinator, be the head coach who oversees everything, and on game days is calling plays?
I mean, he's had so many understudies that have gone off to other teams. I think, yes, I think it's time, right? Like you gotta, you gotta trust your staff. You can't do everything yourself, right? So you really have to. You really, people trust your offensive understudies more than you do. Give one of them the reins. Let them go. They're gonna run the same schemes, same type of thing, same offense, but their play calling may be different. Obviously, everybody's a little different in play calling, but yeah, he has to focus on being a head coach and let the offensive coordinator come in and be the offensive coordinator. Now, I'm not saying go hire somebody from a different team. I'm talking about from within, and he can be in there in the meetings and giving his opinion on what type of things they should run, but be more of the head coach. Maybe that's what he's missing. He needs to be more of the head coach and not so much just the offense coordinator.
And I think that's something like that the Niners are missing, right? Like they're missing that head coach. Like they're missing that guy who's going to hold people accountable. They're going to do the right thing and stuff like that. So for me, I'm looking at him like, I think it's time. Like just because you have a head coach doesn't necessarily believe. I'm gonna throw you over to this side because he was wanting to know what your channel name was. So his channel is actually J Harp TV, right?
Yes, Josh
So
Harper. It's in my that's my Twitter handle and it's in my bio.
yeah, so it's on his Twitter handle. It's also on the Clutch Gene Sports. If you go down to the description, it is on there as well at the very end. So my bad, the mic was blocking his name, so my apologies. So for me, I'm looking at him like it's time. Like you could have a dude run your meetings offensively, run the everything else, the installs. You're there anyways. Like you're overseeing things. You're just having that guy be the main dude. And on game days, you're calling plays anyways. You're not going to give the keys to someone calling plays. I think it's time. Now, a big thing about Kyle Shanahan is he truly sounds like he is fully invested in Brock Purdy, right? Like he sounds like, you know what? Brock Purdy is my guy. I love Brock Purdy. Talks about him extremely highly. He looks excited to talk about Brock Purdy.
Mm.
Can Brock Purdy lead the Niners to a Super Bowl? Win, not just a Super Bowl. We could get him. We know he could get us to Super Bowl. Can he win a Super Bowl for the 49ers, and why?
Man, yeah. So I mean, it's a good question. Can he? I think he can. He was there, and that's with this team. Can he do it with this team, this core group of guys? I think he can. Now, where it becomes kind of skewed and kind of choppy is when these older guys like the Kittles, Debo's, probably gonna. I don't think he'll retire a Niner. When these main core group of guys start to leave the team, when Brock Purdy gets paid, now we're really having that conversation. Can he lead this team to a Super Bowl? Now that's when it becomes tough. But right now, I think yes, he can do it. I think he's proven to come up in big games. He's had some big playoff games when it mattered. He had a decent Super Bowl. I'm not saying he went out and had a Jalen Hurts type of game. When the Eagles win the Super Bowl, but he had a decent game where they had a chance to win it. Less field goals, more touchdowns in the red zone, they probably come out on top and win. So to answer your question, yes, I do think he can win. With this contract he has, but once he gets paid and some of the main players start to leave and go to other teams, that's when it becomes tough. And I don't know about that.
And I think it does become tough because when you start losing, and I think this is why Kyle Shannon hasn't promoted an OC, is he loses coaches left and right. We're to the point where it's kind of hard to continue having guys where essentially you're replacing an OC every other year. Now that voice is going to be different every year. Um, Great Tone in I put the whole YouTube link right there for you, so you could just click on that link and you should be able to go straight to it. Um, so for me, it's one of those ones where I think it's more so fear to like year in year out, you're constantly hiring a new OC, new voice. I think he just wants to be that voice and that it's the same person that Brock could go to because Brock actually doesn't. Kyle uses his quarterback coach as an OC in a way. He has Brock talk to Brian Greasy so much that that's essentially the OC. But for me, I think it's time for the Niners to hire an OC, and I think with how much Brock has evolved without an OC, I think it shows how great of a quarterback Brock is. Because you have less time with your head coach. You don't have Kyle Shanahan in the meeting rooms every day to ask questions to get better. Like you lose that the development from the offensive coordinator. So I think Brock Purdy's development shows he could lead the Niners to a Super Bowl and win it. My question is can he do it when he loses talent around him? That's where and I think that's the biggest question, and I think it's the hardest question to answer because we're projecting something, right? Like, and I think based on what we saw last year and the year before, his rookie year, I'm going to say yes, Brock Purdy could win a Super Bowl with the 49ers. I'm just going to say the same thing I said last year. I don't think it'll be this year. Last year, I said before the year started, I don't think the Niners will win a Super Bowl with Brock Purdy this year. And it was more so because I think Brock needs to learn to, I wouldn't necessarily say Brock needs to learn. I think Kyle needs to give Brock the keys to make adjustments at the line of scrimmage, to audible at the line of scrimmage. So where he's not, he could open up Kyle's offense to another dimension. The moment Kyle puts his full trust into Brock Purdy in terms of, hey, I know I called this play against cover 3, but you want to do this because you see how the safety's already creeping. You know the pre-adjustment snap is going to end up being something else. You could call that at the line of scrimmage. And I think the moment he does that is the moment Brock's IQ, that's what wins games. Like Brock is so smart that I think that's what's going to win a Super Bowl one day. If he does win a Super Bowl, it's up here like Drew Brees.
Yeah.
Like wasn't the extreme talented quarterback, but he at the line of scrimmage pointing things out, what's happening. And I think for me, I think Brock could if Kyle lets him, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it makes 100%. Yeah, I mean, he has what it takes. Um, he's not Josh Allen, and again, I'm past that comparing him to all the you know these quarterbacks that have all these physical attributes and can throw it this far, and they can be late on this throw because they can zip it in. I'm done because he's in his own category, and he's like you said, he's smart up here. He knows how to diagnose a play. He knows, what's going to be open. And then the plus of what we saw this year is his pocket mobility and how he can escape and extend the play. So I definitely think he can win the Super Bowl for the 49ers.
Now, the question is a lot of people they talk about Brock Purdy. Do we pay him? I know you and I have talked about that as well. Do we pay Brock Purdy when the time comes? And a lot of people's answer is yes, but not 50 million. Yes, but not 60 million. Well, obviously, 55 is the highest paid per year, which is Joe
Mm-hmm.
Burrow. So it's like, since the answer is for a lot of people is yes, we should pay him, but not top quarterback money. Should
Mm-hmm.
the Niners think about drafting a quarterback, whether that's in the first, second, third, but obviously earlier than the fifth, sixth, and seventh, because you could potentially replace Brock?
Mm-hmm.
Should they draft a quarterback this year where they could start developing him year one? Or should they say, hell no, this is Brock's team. We're paying
Mm-hmm.
him 60 million. No matter what, we think he's the guy. What are your thoughts on drafting a quarterback earlier in this draft than people would expect?
No, so I personally don't think that they will. I think that Brock is Kyle's guy. When the time comes, Brock is going to get paid, and it doesn't work like, oh well, we're not going to be able to pay him 50. It depends where the market is. If he splits in that 50 million per year, he's going to get it, and that's just how the quarterback market works. But as far as like drafting a quarterback high this year, I don't think they should. I think that's why they brought in Dobbs so he can be that quarterback that keeps them afloat if something, God forbid, if something happens to Brock. But I do like you said, like a Jordan Travis. I think you draft a project like a Milton, a Travis. I like the kid from Tulane.
Oh,
So
Michael Pratt. If you're taking
Michael
Michael
Pratt.
Pratt, you're taking him in the third round, though, because he's
He's
going to be
he's
gone.
he's still high, huh?
Yeah,
People
he's
have him
he's
high.
good.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Well, what a lot of teams did, so from a lot of people I talked to, I liked Michael Pratt. When I was like,
Mhm,
started asking people, like, hey, what are your thoughts on Michael Pratt? I
mhm,
told a couple of my guys, hey, I think he's going to be that guy that kind of climbs throughout the draft process. And I asked one of them, like, hey, what are your thoughts on Michael Pratt? And they're like, oh, a lot of teams see him as Brock Purdy. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, he's like a quarterback who led a team in college,
mhm,
got them to be a winning program at Tulane,
mhm,
has all the IQ wise, he has that intangible, doesn't have the best arm, doesn't have the fastest speed, but he's that guy he's gonna compete, he's gonna win you games. Who I personally thought he played more like over Brock, and I hate comparing players to other players just
mhm,
because it just doesn't make sense because you're getting this player from college. So I like to
mhm.
compare him from college. I would say more so say Kirk Cousins coming out of Michigan State.
Okay,
That's who
okay.
I would unlike. You could develop him to be that guy. I think he's more pro ready than Kirk was coming out of Michigan State. I
Mhm,
think he could start that year one for
mhm.
a team who needs a quarterback. But I think if they're going Michael Pratt, you got to get him in the third or fourth round, at latest fourth round.
Yeah, I like Pratt. I like Pratt a lot. And again, if it's third round, I mean, we've seen the Niners take players that's not going to start in the third round. We've seen it. So is it far fetched? I don't think so. But I think personally, I think you take a project, somebody that has all the attributes, and somebody who you feel like you can groom into a really good quarterback with a lot of good traits, right? So I think that's what you do. I think instead of just going the undrafted route, which I think they're going to do that this year. Yeah, go get a quarterback undrafted, and have him on practice squad and stuff. But I think I would like to see them draft a quarterback later in the draft. That's a project and has all these tools, to be one of those elite quarterbacks that just needs some grooming.
So you mentioned project, you mentioned elite traits or stuff like that, or like the guy who has those traits.
Mm,
You also mentioned a quarterback who has extreme talent, but just doesn't have accuracy, needs some cleaning up in terms of mechanics,
mm,
but he has an elite arm strength. He has a great build. He has a developmental quarterback. If you could get him to be the quarterback that develops, you may find something. And I don't
mm,
necessarily think he needs to be elite when it comes to being accurate.
mm.
Uh, I don't know if people remember, but Jalen Hurts wasn't the most accurate
Right,
quarterback coming out. Like he
100%.
was this quarterback that had talent. He had the ability to throw the ball. Was kind of off every once in a while, just how he was last year.
Mm.
But he's a good runner, good frame. Joe Milton is kind of that guy, but just much bigger, 6'5", 235. Would you take Joe Milton earlier than he's projected to go just to get that kind of talent?
Now, for a quarterback, for a team that has a quarterback on the older side, let's say like in his 30s, let's say in their 30s, and they don't have a young backup, I would do it. Now, the Niners have a young quarterback who's their star quarterback, no questions, no ifs, ands, or buts. Brock Purdy is the guy. He's the top quarterback in the league. He played like it last year. So I don't think you create that stigma, that controversy. Like, hey, watch it, look over your back. You know, you got a young, talented quarterback coming in who he has all these traits. He can throw it 60 yards. He's gonna get the fans crazy about that, right? I don't think you create that distraction. So I if he's there in the fifth round, maybe the fourth, I would think about taking him. Maybe, but fifth and beyond, I would think about taking
Let's say you do take him in that fourth, fifth round, right? That
him.
range, a little
Mm-hmm.
bit earlier than he may go because he's a project.
Yeah.
Let's say for some reason, and I want to say he's working the quarterback coach that he's working with, is a similar quarterback. I want to say it's the same quarterback coach as Brock Purdy. I could be completely wrong. I want to
Mm-hmm.
say it is, but I completely wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Um, let's say he develops, right? Because Brock Purdy had a little bit of trouble with his lower body mechanics
Mm-hmm.
before he went to this quarterback coach. Let's say Joe Milton comes into camp and he looks extremely accurate and he looks different. Like he just stands out, right? Obviously, you're gonna stand out when you have a rocket launcher for an arm,
Yeah.
and you 6'5" and you can move. But let's say he's actually running Kyle's offense really well, like everything's going well. Does that cause any drama in the locker room for quarterback? Like, hey, like this guy could, if something's not there, he can make something out of nothing with his rushing ability. Or is it like, you know what? Don't draft someone who could potentially make Brock Purdy feel uncomfortable.
So, and that's the reason why you take a project, because they're not going to come out and threaten Brock Purdy right away. It will be 3, 4 years down the road, and that's around the time where Brock Purdy's time to, where he's going to get paid. So yeah, have that assurance where if you feel like you can still win building a team around the quarterback, and you feel like that quarterback has come a long ways, where you feel like if like one season under his belt, you feel like he can be just as good, then you do that. But you know, that's why you take him late, because they know they're coming in. Brock Purdy's the guy. They're probably going to be the third string quarterback. They're going to be on practice squad for 2 or 3 years. Josh Dobbs is the backup. So that's what you do just for assurance, right? Like, not somebody to come in and think like, okay, I might be able to take Brock Purdy's job, because that's not going to happen. It's just not, unless he just sits down his leg. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, I know. I'm not saying it's gonna happen. I just want to like just a conversation because if he
Yeah,
does come out and he's lighting it up and he looks good, it gives you
but
some hope. Like, hey, maybe you might have something in this guy.
yeah, and you'll always have that group of fan base that wants more, and I don't you don't blame them, right? They always want more. So if a quarterback comes in that the Niners draft in the sixth round, and he's coming in and lighting it up through the air in preseason and throwing bombs that we don't see often, like it's just a beautiful pass down the sideline in the air, then you create that energy from a fan base, and you like I said, you'll always have that group of fan base, that certain fan base that's going to want more, and it's going to create some type of buzz that the Niners might not want again this early. So
And
I
I
don't
think
know.
it might create a buzz and a conversation with Kyle Shanahan and the front office. Like we saw Kyle Shanahan go publicly saying after like the first week of training camp, he knew Brock Purdy was special, right?
Mm-hmm.
Could he put that mindset or like, oh dang, like I have something special
Yeah.
in a young quarterback, right? Like so we know Kyle Shanahan can move off of that, but it also gives you a situation where, hey Brock, I know you're super good, but
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
now I have this young quarterback who's gonna sit another year. We're
Mm-hmm.
not gonna pay you. You're gonna play on your fourth year, and then we might just tag you and trade you. Like,
Yeah.
could that like a lot of different scenarios? And that's why I think the Niners should draft a quarterback who is a developmental guy because if they can't come to terms with a Brock Purdy, or if Brock wants, you know what? I've been playing on pennies for you. I've been playing for pennies
Mm-hmm.
compared to
Mm-hmm.
the other top quarterbacks. I want my 60 million. I want 70 million. Like I want this money. I want this much guaranteed XYZ. Then you kind of have to think about, hey, you know what? Roster building strategy. I cannot pay this guy $65 million. Like, it just
Right.
doesn't work in the best of our interests. So I think that's why they should. I don't think they will, but I think
Mm-hmm.
they should. I think they
Yeah.
should take a developmental guy, like you're saying, a guy like Joe Milton, Kadon Slovis from BYU.
Mm-hmm.
They need to take someone at that range. I do see. Um, this I wanted to bring this one up. We may never know how good Brock is if Kyle doesn't loosen up a bit. What are your thoughts on this comment in terms of Kyle loosening up and seeing Brock excel?
Maybe maybe they're a good fit for each other. Maybe Brock needs this type of coaching. I mean, he did last until the very last pick, right? So it's not like he's just in college, like he's just a player that just goes out and lights it up with his arm and drop back, doing that type of thing. But maybe he needs this type of coaching. Maybe he needs this structure where he knows where he's supposed to go with the ball. He's reading, he's pre-snap read the defense. He knows exactly where he's going. So maybe he does need this, or maybe he doesn't. Maybe Kyle is holding him back. I don't think we'll know until a breakup happens per se, or Kyle does loosen up. But I think they're good for each other. Honestly, I think they are.
And I would agree because when we look at the way Kyle talks about him, Kyle speaks highly of him.
Mm-hmm.
Kyle has this mindset of Brock is my dude, and we're gonna
Mm-hmm.
win the Super Bowl together. And I love that about him.
Yeah.
Now, I did tell you we're gonna have some random conversations that you weren't gonna know the topics about. We talked a
Yeah.
little bit about women college basketball to start the show,
Mm-hmm.
Kendrick Lamar, J. Cole. I wanted to know who's your favorite teammate of all time. Like you did not know this was coming, and
That's a
I'm
good
like,
one.
so you may choose obviously Devontae Adams,
Mm-hmm.
probably one of the bigger named guys that you played with before.
Yeah.
But who's your favorite teammate of all time?
Favorite teammate of all time. Does it high school, college?
Any
What
in
is
all time, like anywhere. Like it could be your little league best friend that you're gonna be like, you know what, that's my homie. That's why he's
mm-hmm.
my favorite teammate. Like whatever you want to say, like it's whatever. Who's your favorite teammate of all time? And they're probably gonna see this later because you're gonna retweet it and
That's
probably gonna
that's
send that.
that's tight. That's tight. So like, man. So my favorite teammate, I'm gonna go with three-headed monster. They call us the three-headed monster. We're one. So that's my favorite teammate is Isaiah Burst and Devontae Adams. So those are we're one. So that's my favorite teammate right there. Boom.
Okay, you're putting on Isaiah Burst from
Yeah.
Modesto, California, from the 209.
Yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned Isaiah Burst because I've
Mm-hmm.
actually met Isaiah Burst, but wasn't even because like I was actually when I was growing up. I want to say he's much older than me,
Mm-hmm.
not much older than me, but my brother's age, maybe a little bit older, like 29, 30
Yeah.
range, right? Like in that range,
Mm-hmm.
and I was always trying to get work in with anywhere I could. Like
Yeah.
even though I was 8 years younger than him, one of his friends knew my brother and like, hey, your brother wants to come work out. We're gonna
Mm-hmm.
be working out. So I worked out with him once. He probably don't even remember me, but it's heck of funny because as a kid growing up, seeing a guy like Isaiah Burst at the time he was at Modesto Christian, I
Christian.
believe.
Mm-hmm.
Modesto
Baller.
Christian.
Stupid
And
baller right there.
we used to play on their field. So I looked up to him. So I was like, oh cool, I get to work out with this dude. And then he goes off to Fresno State,
Mm-hmm.
goes crazy, goes plays for the Chargers and stuff like that. That's
Mm,
crazy. You went with the 3-headed monster.
yeah.
That's
I
crazy.
mean, man, I could have went with any. I could have went with anybody though in the receiving core. So our receiving core was so tight, and I'm not sure if every single team is like that. I'm pretty sure your position group you're tight, but when I say our receiving core was tight, like I could have picked any. I could have picked Rashad Evans. I mean those three right there. That's who I've been the closest with. I'm still close with them today. So I could have went either way, but I'm like I said, I'm gonna go as a one. I'm gonna go 3-headed monster right there. So shout out to
Okay.
them.
And that's a good favorite receiving group to have,
Mhm.
or favorite teammates to have. Devontae Adams and
Mhm.
Isaiah Burst, who goes by Burst at the time. I don't know if he still does, but Burstio Bubble.
Yeah, I
Um,
think it might be Starburst. It was, you had Starburst, you had Burst Your Bubble. It
that's what I
might
remember
be,
him as, Burstio Bubble.
yeah. So it might
Yeah,
still be that.
that's crazy. So 3-headed monster. Now, if anyone else has any other questions for Jay Harp, I just thought it was a just super random topic. Just to
Yeah.
who's your favorite teammate, and what kind of got me into that mindset is Grant was actually talking about the other day on one of his
Mhm.
shows his least favorite Niners to ever cover, his
Yeah.
favorite 49ers to ever cover, and I was like, yeah, that's actually a interesting like random topics to like bring up
Mhm.
every once in a while on the
Mhm.
show. Um, for people who don't
That's a good
know
one.
ever been for people who don't know ever been in a locker room, what's it like when you're around dudes like Devontae Adams in college? Like how what was the locker room environment with everyone knew Tay was legit in college. Like he
Mhm.
was putting up numbers that were ridiculous. What was your thoughts being around those kind of guys at the time, where at that time you're not looking at them as like, damn, this dude's a superstar. This is your homie ball. Like you guys are
Mhm.
balling out
Mhm.
together.
Yeah.
You're obviously third in majority of the freaking stats at Fresno State.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
what was it like being in a locker room with those guys?
Man, it was you really didn't think like, oh, this dude is going to be a superstar in NFL, or like we was just really kids. We was kids. We was having fun, living it up, just like any other kids. We all had dreams of playing in the NFL. We knew Tay was gonna be special. We knew Tay was gonna be special when he redshirted, and we used to have these freshman scrimmages every Sunday night. And I want to say like the first throw to him was like a bomb, and he caught it with ease. I'm like, okay, this somebody, man, somebody, we might have to burn his red shirt real quick because he was that special. But it was fun. Like you joke around, you have these inside jokes. Like I'm saying, the receiving core was so close, but our team as a whole was close. Like even the defensive side. So you just joking around and you know playing around in the locker room. The locker room was fun back in the day, man. I don't know how if the locker room is still like that, but it was some fun things that went on in the locker room back in the day.
Did you guys have a foosball table, basketball like hoop? What'd you guys have in the locker room that made it fun outside
Man,
of like the trash talking and like the being a bro with your teammates?
yeah. So man, so Fresno State didn't have none of that until like we left. So our group is kind of part of the reason why they started getting all this stuff in the locker room. I think when I went back to coach, they had the Xbox in there, the PlayStation in there. We didn't have none of that. So what we have like rap battles in there, roast sessions in there, but
Who
we
said
all
rap? I gotta know who was rapping out of all those dudes on the team.
we
Like who
was
was like was anyone
freestyle
spitting bars?
freestyling, spitting bars. I mean, we actually had a couple players that spent their whole check on a studio. We had players, yeah, but it didn't
Yeah,
pan
that's
out. But
crazy.
actually, no, one of the players, EJ Schexnayder, is actually a pretty good artist. I forget his artist name, but he came in my class. Take a rap a little bit now. Burst can rap.
Take a rap.
Yeah, Burst can rap. Um, but yeah, it was fun, and we'll go to our rec basketball in Fresno State, and we'll go play against the DBs. We'll do things like that, talking trash back and forth. We even played against some of the actual hoopers at Fresno State. So, we did things like that, and we always did it together. Like we was never apart, so it was always fun.
Well, that's cool. So anytime they were walking around, you were probably either right next to them or
Oh
right
yeah.
behind them, catching up. That's pretty cool. Just super random topics to bring up. Just wanted to start bringing up some random topics on every show just to make it more of a true podcast, not necessarily just full football related. Obviously, it's like it just makes it a little bit different, brings a different element. It also gives people a topic that, for example, most people don't know how it is in a college locker room or an NFL like locker room. I've had the privilege to cover Stanford credentially and see stuff like that. Like, so I know how an interaction is. And growing up at a young age, I was blessed to my uncles, they barbecued for the Niners. So I would go through the locker room and hang out and see like the environment. So I know how it is. So it's just certain things to like help educate people and give people an open eye in terms of what a locker room is truly like, if that makes sense.
I actually forgot one. I can't forget it since I'm retweeting now. Right? So Robbie Rouse is one of my
you forgot him.
Yeah, what I forgot. And we still close today too. So I just had to
it don't matter.
Shout out Robbie. He's a coach. He's a coach. Just won a national championship last year, man. So shout out Robbie.
So where do you win a championship at?
Man, he gonna kill me. Is it North Dakota or is it South Dakota?
Oh, so you got
Dakota State or South State?
Ooh, I want to say South
Dakota. They just won a championship. So it's Bisons, like they're yellow.
If he's a Bison, if the yellow and green, where Trey Lance came from, then
no.
I want to say the Jackrabbits. The Jackrabbits. Yeah. So he was with South Dakota then.
South Dakota.
So your top teammate, well, you can't really give one, you said, because it's three-headed monsters, which is you, Thea Burst, Devontae Adams, and your final one was
Rashad Evans and Robbie.
Rashad Evans and Robbie. And I'm gonna make sure I cut that up so you can know, they know. So all your other teammates that you didn't name could come after you on Twitter or wherever they decide to text you, call you, let you know. Bro, you told me you were my homie. You called me bro. We're brothers. And they're going to understand that they're no longer your favorite teammate or they weren't your favorite teammate. They're going to be heartbroken. And I'm just going to be like, hey, it ain't my fault. I had to ask the question. But man, hey, appreciate everyone for tuning in. I know we have like 110 on Twitter that are watching in. We have a good amount that are watching in on YouTube as well. So you might have a teammate that might text you right now because he's watching on Twitter and saw you going live. But thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button to Collegiate Gene Sports. Make sure you guys go over to Josh Harper TV on YouTube as well. Hit that subscribe button. You guys could follow J Harp II on Twitter. You could also go to in the link in the description, Hydrate Like a Pro. You could hydrate like a pro, buy your son or daughter a water bottle so they can hydrate. And there's also a youth book by Josh Harper's sister in there as well. So make sure you guys do those before you guys head on out and have dinner. Thanks, J Harp.
I appreciate it.